Hello, and welcome back to the channel. Although I have not officially changed the name of the channel yet, I'm going to do that as soon as I get a chance. But this is J.P.s World. It was previously of Wrestling, so it was J.P.s World of Wrestling, and now I'm kind of changing the name to J.P.s World of Retro or J.P.s Retro World. One of the two. One of those two. I'm still kind of deciding which one I like better. But anyway, so like I said before, we are still going to cover a lot of wrestling. And today is no exception because today we are going to revisit a video that I've already done. We've already looked at the WCW Galoobs, but today we're going to look at the WCW Galoobs again. So back in 1990, WWF had just come out with their Hasbro figures, and WCW needed something to compete with the WWF. So Eric Bischoff, who had just taken over direction of WCW, made a deal with Galoob to make their action figures. So, and I don't know exactly. Let me see if it says here, but yeah, 1990. So anyway, but I remember specifically playing with these figures, and I remember, having a lot of memories playing with them because they were the same size as the WWF Hasbro figures. So in some ways, you could have these dream matches that you wouldn't be able to have in real life because one guy was in WWF, another guy was in WCW. So the guys, they didn't wrestle each other. But through the magic of these action figures, you could have these dream matches. And even though there's a difference between Galoobs and Hasbro, where the Hasbros were more cartoonish, and each of them had like a kind of a silly like action move, like where maybe the fist would go up like that, or they would do the gorilla press slam or something like that. But these were more realistic, and so I'm going to go through them now, and I'm going to start with one that I feel like is probably the worst one of the series, at least for the U.S. releases. And it's because of the pose. Anybody that knows me know I am all about the pose with these action figures. So I'm going to start with this guy. This is Ron Simmons. Like I've said before, I like the actual guy, Ron Simmons. I like the wrestler because, he's a big, strong guy, former college football player. So he was an athlete. And it showed in the ring. And he was very good in the ring. But this figure is not very good. Like, his arm is fused to his body. So you can't really do much with this figure. This is just, it's not very good. Whoever designed this figure wasn't really thinking about playability, I think. So, I don't know. Not a very good figure. Unfortunately, Ron Simmons, probably the weak link of the entire Galoob series. And so now we're going to talk about a guy. This figure's not really as bad, but it's still not great. And it's one that got a lot of play, but only because this guy was my enhancement talent. And I'm talking about Lex Luger. Yep, this Lex Luger figure is okay. It's not horrible, but it's also not the best. The pose makes it very hard to like punch, but he could do like elbow shots like that. He could do suplex, but not really much to this figure. So, I mean, it's okay, but not the worst, but not the best. But got a lot of play just because this guy was my enhancement talent. So, Lex Luger. So the next guy I'm going to talk about, another figure that wasn't super terrific, but it also wasn't super great, but I still would have played with this one a lot had I had it, because otherwise it's a cool figure and I liked the wrestler a lot. So, Flying Brian Pillman. Now, some of you might be saying, what's wrong with this figure? The pose looks okay. Well, it's these open hands, but again, he could do like kind of open hand strikes or, forearm shots or just, That's where your imagination comes in. But, you know, he could do off the top rope high flying moves that he always did. The thing I like about these GALOOB figures is that they're pre-posed and you don't have to worry about bending an arm or whatever to pose them. You can just wrestle. So, Flying Brian. Now this next one is a pretty good figure, pretty solid. I use this guy a lot. I always used him as sort of like a mid-card kind of guy, but it's this guy, the Z-Man, Tom Zink. He had a run at WWF, and then he was in WCW. That's where this figure comes in, and I actually played with this figure quite a bit. Like I said, it's a solid figure, and he was always a babyface. He's always kind of in the same range for me as like a Tito Santana or Superfly Jimmy Snuka or Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. You know, in the WWF, those guys are always like intercontinental contenders, but they weren't really like top tier wrestlers, or they weren't top tier talent as far as the WWF was concerned. So anyway, Z-Man, Tom Zink, pretty good figure. And now the next I'm going to talk about two guys. It's the Steiner brothers, Rick and Scott Steiner. We'll start with Rick Steiner. Very, very solid figure. Very good figure. I like this figure a lot. I love this pose. This pose represents his wrestling style, and it represents, you know, the way that he kind of moved. He did a lot of like amateur style, collegiate style wrestling moves, and so that's kind of what this figure kind of conveys, and I like it a lot, you know. And I think the UK ones got like a little bit more of an exciting outfit. Like I think they had like bright colored singlets with designs on them. And so, you know, that's kind of cool. But here in the US, we just got plain, like, dark purple, light purple, you know. But anyway, that's Rick Steiner. I like it a lot. And so here we have his tag team partner and brother, Scott Steiner. Now, this is before he became Big Papa Pump. This is the Steiner Brothers tag team version of Scott Steiner. And, you know, of course, the yellow and blue singlet, the figure. You know, normally, I mean, the hand is closed enough to where you could throw punches, but Scott Steiner did a lot of forearm shots to the chest. You know, that was kind of his style. He also did a lot of suplexy, collegiate style wrestling moves. And the Steiners are actually one of my all-time favorite tag teams. So, Scott Steiner. And now we come to one of my favorite action figures of all time, and that is Arn Anderson. Very cool figure. I like this figure a lot, and I like the pose. I like the guy, the actual wrestler, and so I was happy to have him in my imaginary wrestling federation. So this is a very solid figure. Actually, Arn and the next guy I'm going to talk about, they had a lot of endless wrestling battles because the two figures just work really well together. You could have really solid, great matches with both of them. So that's Arn Anderson, AA, the Enforcer. So now we talk about this guy, Sting, the Stinger. Steve Borden. This is the Surfer Sting from WCW. This is a figure that got a lot of play. Most of these figures got a lot of play when I was a kid. Sting is a solid figure. And like I said, these two had endless battles because they just worked well together. The moves, like the moves you could do, you know, body slam, you know, this flying clothesline, you know, Sting. Great figure. I love it. And again, there was another version of this figure where the tights were black and the boots were yellow. And I also remember seeing one where the tights were pink or something, but maybe I'm thinking of the original San Francisco Toy Makers figure. But anyway, Sting, very solid, very cool figure. I love it. So now we're coming into the creme de la creme, the IC champion of my figures, and that is this guy, Barry Windham. Now this is probably of all time, my favorite wrestling action figure because of the pose. Look at the pose. He's got one arm down like that. He's got one arm up like that for suplexing, clotheslines, DDTs with this one. The legs are far enough to where he could do leg drops or drop kicks or whatever. But Barry Windham, I didn't have him when I was a kid, but he would have gotten a ton of play. He probably would have been one of my tippy top guys. So, Barry Windham, I love it. And now we come to the WWF, or not the WWF, but, sorry, I kind of have to sneeze right now. But anyway, Sid Vicious. This is WCW. He's got the belt on because he's our champion. And I tested it out last night, and I do have the means to do action figure matches, so I'm going to do those pretty soon. I'm going to incorporate those in the channel. But this is Sid Vicious. Very cool action figure. Again, I did not have this one when I was a kid. I only got him as an adult collector, but very cool action figure. This figure is just unbelievable. And what I like about it is it's realistically sized. As you can see, Sid Vicious is naturally, he's taller than Sting. He's taller than most of these guys because in real life, the guy's like 6'10" or something like that, like almost 7 feet tall. So he's huge. So I like this figure a lot. Great pose, great outfit, great figure. Sid Vicious. And now we come to my all-time favorite Galoob figure. In my opinion, one of the top 3 wrestling figures of all time. And of course, I'm talking about the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. WCW's tippy-top guy for a very long time. He's a 16-time champion, 14-time champion in WCW/NWA. But yeah, Ric Flair is the man. I love this figure. This figure is perfect for doing all of his moves. You know, all of them. And, you know, you could do the chop to the chest. You know, that chop to the chest. You can do the old man flop. You can do the rolling knee drop. You know, the back suplex, you know. This figure has it all. To me, I give this figure a 10 out of 10, 2 thumbs up, 5 stars, however you want to rank it. Ric Flair, number 1 in my book, as far as the Galoobs go. So the only U.S. released Galoob that I don't have is Butch Reed. I do intend on getting Butch Reed eventually when I become more stable financially, when I'm able to, you know, when I have a little bit extra money to spend on figures like that. So anyway, but yeah, like I said, I am going to be changing the name of the channel, probably to J.P.s Retro World. And I'm going to be talking about things other than wrestling. And I'll talk about, you know, Back to the Future. I'll talk about, you know, the Rocky movie saga. I'll talk about Die Hard. I'll talk about, you know, just basically retro, like life in the 80s compared to life now. You know, modern era action figures compared to, you know, old school action figures. Not just wrestling action figures, like action figures in general. I've toyed around with the idea of collecting Hot Wheels again. You know, so maybe I might do that. Then again, I might not. I don't know. You know, tune in and see. But yeah, we're going to be going full steam with a lot of different things. All of them are going to be fun. All of them are going to be retro. So please stay tuned for that. So that is going to do it for this video. I hope you all had a great New Year's Eve. I certainly did. So with that, I will see you next time.